Teenagers can be fiery and impulsive, and sometimes they go the extra mile to secure their first love. But this can be extremely toxic. Think about it. If the other person has moved on or simply doesn't feel the other way, it's completely their right to be free. It's never okay to restrict someone's freedom. And if you're hurting others for it, then it's very, very bad. Okay, before we get on with the case, please subscribe and turn on the notification bell to get notified whenever I post my next video. So without any further ado, let's dive in. Tragically, back in 1997, this happened to 15-year-old Micah Pollock. He had just moved to Pennsylvania and was just reconnecting with his father. He had made his first girlfriend and was enjoying every day of his life in this new town, but suddenly it all came to a halt. But what drove his classmates to do the unthinkable? And how did he think he was gonna get away? Trigger warning, this case is about to get pretty upsetting. Our story begins in Pine Run, Cambria County, a quiet area full of natural beauty in eastern Pennsylvania. Local officers rarely had reasons to worry as the criminality rates are usually very low. But on November 6, 1997, detectives found a distraught father on the police station doorstep. Ronald Klotz' son, 15-year-old Micah Pollock, was missing. Micah was born in 1982 and had grown up with his mother in Ohio. She had split up from Ronald when he was very young, but in April of 1997, Micah had come to Pennsylvania to live with his father. Since then, they were as close as a father and son could be. They got on very well. They spent their weekends together and they enjoyed all the beautiful nature Pennsylvania offered. Hence, Ronald's worry, Micah would not just leave the house and not tell his dad about it. It was very much unlike him to disappear like this, especially since he seemed to enjoy his new life there very much. The first thing Detective Greg Batcher did was to look into Micah's life. Did he have any friends? Did he have any enemies? Or did he have any reason to run away from home? Unfortunately, all signs pointed towards foul play. Micah had made a lot of friends at school, and he was a happy boy at home too. He simply had no reason to leave. Later that day, the detectives also found out an important clue. Micah had recently started dating a girl. This was his first girlfriend. A few hours later, Detective Batcher visited her and asked her if she knew anything about her boyfriend. It turns out he had spoken to her in the morning. He told her he was going hunting with Andrew Callahan, his 16-year-old friend and schoolmate, but there was something that made her feel uncomfortable. Andrew was her ex-boyfriend. She didn't quite understand why the two would hang out under these circumstances. I mean, wasn't it super awkward? Plus, she had seen some nasty exchanges between the two. Ever since she had broken up with Andrew, he had been extremely possessive towards her. Then when she started dating Micah, he started being aggressive with him. Apparently, Andrew had threatened Micah a few times at school. Surely the two out hunting together didn't make a lot of sense. But she didn't know for certain that Micah had gone hunting with Andrew. All she knew was the plan on the day Micah disappeared. The police had to keep their eyes on Micah, but they couldn't make any arrests just yet. Hours turned into days, and the Pennsylvania police were nowhere closer to finding Micah. They had people searching through the woods and the waters day and night, hoping for any little clue that would help locate the teen. But the more time passed, the less hopeful they got. Usually in missing persons case, time is only bad news. Desperate to make progress, the police set up roadblocks and began interviewing anyone who drove by. But people would see Micah's picture and would just shake their head, saying that they had never seen him before. This too seemed like a dead end. But just when no one was expecting any developments, a man was pulled over and he recognized Micah from the detective's pictures. Apparently, he was driving through the same area a few days prior when he saw Micah with another teenage boy. According to this witness, the other boy was carrying a shotgun and the two were heading towards a strip mine in the area. When shown a picture of Andrew Callahan, the man said it could have very well been him with Micah. Clues were piling up, but it wasn't looking good for Micah. The very next morning, a large squad of police officers and forensic technicians started the search in the area of the mine, as the victims described. Now, not only was this area huge, it had rained heavily during the last few days, so any clues could have been long hidden in the mud or moved through the fields. However, one officer spotted something that caught her attention: a freshly thrown out trash can. A close look inside the trash can revealed the truth that the officers feared. There were drops of blood inside. The forensic team collected the blood samples as well as the dirty, murky water inside the trash can. It could hold valuable DNA. Everything was sent to the lab for testing while the investigators continued to search for Micah in vain. When we watch police movies, it's usually an officer putting two and two together in the blink of an eye and determining who they are. After, then maybe there is a car chase and boom, they're caught. Well, in reality, it's rarely like that. Not only were the officers feeling like on a wild goose chase, back at the lab, the samples were less than optimal criminalist. Bruce Trackett determined that the liquid found inside the trash can was indeed human, but the quantity was so little. He couldn't get a DNA profile from it. His only hope was the murky water the forensic team has collected. But to get any blood inside it, he had to extract the water completely. Otherwise, it would have been too diluted to analyze. The water was put inside an evaporation chamber and left to reveal the solids inside. When the process was done, Bruce looked at the tank and found no blood. Luckily though, he found one strand of hair. It was a small clue, but it held valuable DNA. However, this was also a slow process and a profile could not be determined on the spot. Meanwhile, the police were not giving up on their terrain search. With the trash can found in the area, they were certain they would find something else soon enough. However, it was one of those moments where they wanted to find something, but they feared it would be bad news, and it was. Within a few days of their search, the police brought their dogs along. The dogs quickly pointed the officers to a beaver pond where they retrieved the body of a young man. He had been shot in the back, and his ankles were tied very tightly together. It was a very sad sight. and the police had a hunch their search was over later that day. The examination of a dental record confirmed that this was 16-year-old Micah Pollock. He had been fired at with a 12 gauge from very close, so close that the pellets that entered his back ended up in his jaw. There were also various bruises and scratches on Micah. To the forensics team, this meant that he had not been killed there. He had been dragged there from somewhere else. Putting two and two together, it wasn't long before the police arrested Andrew Callahan and brought him in for questioning. But his father came along too. Under his watchful eye, Andrew didn't say a word. Well, except no comment. He said he wouldn't say a thing without a lawyer present. Of course, the investigators told him he had no choice but to arrest him. With Andrew at the police station, definitely the police got a search warrant and headed to the Callahan home straight away. It was mere minutes until they found something odd. Perhaps unsurprisingly, this was the very same rope Andrew had used to tie Micah's legs together before throwing him into the water. Then the officers went inside the house. Everything started looking very obvious. Minutes later, the officers emerged with 4 big shotguns, more rope, and bags full of Andrew's clothes. Immediately, the evidence was sent to the lab for testing, but there was a hurdle in the investigation. The guns retrieved from the Callahans couldn't be matched to the bullet that had killed Micah. Furthermore, the clothes were tested for blood. Any blood, but nothing was found. Andrew was guilty and the police knew it. They just couldn't prove it. The only thing left for Bruce Tackett to examine at the lab was the rope. Remember, there were 3 pieces. One tied around Micah's ankles, one the police had retrieved from Andrew's car, and one from inside his home. What followed was a simple comparison between the 3. Bruce's microscope determined that it was the same rope in all 3 cases. Finally, it seemed like Andrew could not escape justice. Many times, as you probably seen on this channel before, teenage killers start talking when the investigators say they have evidence on them. When they feel there is no escape, they don't know what else to do. And feeling guilty or simply helpless, they end up confessing. It wasn't any different in Andrew Callahan's case. However, he had a twist to the story. He said he had shot Micah in the back, but not on purpose. He was hunting for birds. He said when he lost track of a bird and got his friend instead. Of course, he panicked, so he tried disposing of the body. First, he covered him with dead leaves, then rushed home to find a better solution. But remember, the coroner's examination, Micah had been fired at from a distance of 3 feet. How could he claim that this was an accident? This was premeditated. And so was the cover-up. The rope was actually plan B. Andrew thought Micah's body would fit inside the trash can, but it didn't. So he grabbed the rope and used it to drag him with his car to his spot. He thought he would never be found. Then he made sure he would end up at the bottom of a pond. This was a horrific story for anyone involved in this case, let alone Micah's family. He had just started dating someone. This was his first time, and everything seemed to be going well. A few months later, her jealous ex-boyfriend decided to take his own life. A true tragedy for someone who had his whole life ahead of him. Andrew Callahan was tried as an adult and charged with the first-degree murder of Micah Pollock. The murder was premeditated and he had threatened Micah several times before. During the trial's testimony included information that Callahan had threatened to kill Pollock if he did not stay away from his ex-girlfriend. He will be in prison for the rest of his life. Was his jealous fit really worth it? This should have been a lesson to all jealous teens out there. Don't hurt others and don't waste your lives over a moment of pain. Feelings change and there are better things awaiting. Now Andrew has his whole life to think about his horrific actions. Andrew Callahan kept appealing his sentence over and over again in 2007, 2010, and 2020. The reasoning behind these appeals is that in Pennsylvania, a juvenile can only be convicted to life in prison if the juvenile offender is permanently incorrigible, thus is unable to be rehabilitated. Since Andrew was 16 at the time of the murder, he could ask for a 35-year sentence instead of life, if he could prove he is rehabilitated. As of March of 2022, Callahan's sentence was changed to 30 years in prison. This doesn't mean he'll be free anytime soon, but there is a chance he will walk out in his late 40s. Unfortunately, the amount of time spent behind bars will bring Micah back or bring peace to his grieving family. Thanks for watching this video, you guys. And please give this video a thumbs up and please subscribe. Thank you. I hopefully will see you in my next video.